Hey everyone, welcome to Behind the Bard. My name is Tiffany Eller. I'm the managing director of the Boise Bard Players.
And I'm Chris Canfield. I'm the artistic director of the Boise Bard Players.
And this Behind the Bard is going to be a little different than our previous ones, and we're going to start you off with the first scene, first act of The Servant of Two Masters to give you a chance to see what this show is kind of all about. And then after that, we'll go into an interview with the director of The Servant of Two Masters, Chris, to kind of hear a little bit more about Commedia dell'arte, this specific production of The Servant of Two Masters, and what you have to look forward to when you come out to Trailhead on between April 24th and May 4th. So exciting stuff. We're going to read a scene.
Yeah. So this is the opening this is when Truffaldino, our Servant of Two Masters, enters for the very first time in the show. I'll read Truffaldino, and you want to read Pantalone?
Yeah.
Okay. My most humble duty to the ladies and gentlemen. A very fine company, to be sure. Very fine indeed.
Who are you, my good friend, and what is your business?
Oh, who is this fair gentlewoman?
That is my daughter.
Delighted to hear it.
What's more, she is going to be married.
I'm sorry to hear it. And who are you?
I'm her maid, sir.
I congratulate her.
Come, sir, have done with ceremony. What do you want with me? Who are you? Who sends you hither?
Patience, my good sir. Take it easy. 3 questions at once is too much for a poor man. Whew.
I think the man's a fool.
I think he's playing the fool.
Is it you?
Is it you? Is it you that are going to be married?
No, sir. Oh, that's also me. Will you tell me who you are, or will you go about your business?
If you only want to know who I am, I'll tell you in 2 words. I am the servant of two masters, or the servant of my master. To go back to what I was saying.
But who is your master?
He is a gentleman who desires the honor of paying his respects to you. We must have a talk about this marriage business.
Who is this gentleman, I say? What is his name?
Oh, that is a very long story. Signor Federico Rasponi of Turin. That's my master, and he sends his compliments, and he has come to see you, and he's down below, and he says to me that he would like to come up, and he's waiting for an answer. Anything else, or will that do? Let's begin again.
Come here and talk to me. What the devil do you mean?
If you want to know I know who I am Truffaldine Batocchio from Bergamo.
I don't care who you are. Tell me again, who is this master of yours? I fear I did not hear you rightly.
Poor old gentleman, his hearing must not be so good. My master is Signor Federico Rasponi of Turin.
Away! You must be mad. Signor Federico Rasponi of Turin is dead.
Dead?
To be sure, he's dead. Worse luck for him.
The devil! My master dead? I left him alive downstairs. You mean really to tell me that he is dead?
I tell you for an absolute certainty, he is dead.
'Tis the honest truth. He is dead. We can have no doubt about it. Alas, my poor master. He must have met with an accident. Your very humble servant, sir.
Can I do nothing more for you?
If he's dead, there's nothing more to do, but I'm gonna go see if it's true or not. And then he leaves.
That was fun. I've never read that before.
Oh, great. Yes, clearly. First cold read, entirely cold.
Yeah, so obviously I'm not playing Pantalone, but we do have some really incredible actors that are pulling this show off, and I've had the pleasure of sitting in on a few rehearsals, and from week 1, the show was already funny. Mm-hmm. So I would love to talk about, can you give us a brief rundown of the plot of The Servant of Two Masters? And
yeah.
We'll go from there. So
it's The Servant of Two Masters. The plot, as you might surmise, is about this servant. His name in the story is Truffaldino, who begins. We open on the living room of Pantalone and Dottore's children, Silvio and Clarice, are swearing their love together, and they're going to be betrothed to be married. And we learn that Clarice was betrothed to Signor Federico Rasponi of Turin. But he died in a duel, and so now Dottore's son Silvio gets to marry Clarice. But then in walks Truffaldino and says, very jokingly and with many quips and sidebars, says, my master is Senior Federigo Rasponi of Turin. And they're like, what? That can't be. He's dead. And the scene that you saw. Then he comes upstairs, and it's actually Beatrice, his sister, who's pretending to be Federigo. But it causes all sorts of mayhem. And in the fracas, in the misunderstandings, Truffaldino eventually finds himself swearing he has time to serve a second master. He finds the ability, and through a misunderstanding, he takes on employment of literally waiting on two different people. So he becomes the servant of two masters, and the whole good part of the story is watching Truffaldino manage to somehow balance serving these two masters who actually are looking for each other, but they don't know it. Because Beatrice Rasponi is one of them, who has fled to Turin, or to Venice, or wherever we are in the story. And her beloved betrothed to be Florindo shows up looking for her, and that's the other master that Truffaldino ends up serving. And Silvio, Dittore's son, ends up wanting to swear revenge on Federigo, who is Beatrice in disguise, because she's stolen his love, Clarice, from him forever. And it's an awful lot of, as I like to say, a lot of sound and fury signifying nothing. It's an awful lot of hoopla, and it's overblown love story, overly complicated, that all wraps up when misunderstandings are revealed, and it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. And I've heard you say before that commedia dell'arte, which is what this piece is like watching a cartoon. So can you kind of talk about where, if the plot is kind of a non-issue, like what is the drive of a commedia dell'arte piece, and like why is it going to be so much fun?
Right. So fantastic. So commedia dell'arte, which literally translates to theater of professional artists, which funny enough was coined by the very author that wrote the play that we're doing, The Servant of Two Masters. The author is Carlo Goldoni, who actually was writing at the near end of the commedia arc of history boom, yes, in Italy. It starts in the 1500s and begins to end in the 1800s. And Carlo Goldoni writes The Servant of Two Masters in 1753. But the commedia dell'arte as a phrase comes out of one of his other plays. And it talks about, in contrast to what he talks when he mentions the professional theaters, it's in opposition to the amateur theaters that are that pop up all over the place, and the people that are hawking their snake oil salesmen that use dramatic flair and tricks, much like commedia, to sell their wares, which is actually how commedia dell'arte started in the 1500s, 1400s. But so when I say living cartoon, commedia dell'arte, its main feature are these stock characters and high physical comedy, very, very physical comedy. It's sometimes rather ruthless. Servants are often beaten, kicked, killed. Things get rather violent, but it's always comical and without much repercussion, much like Looney Tunes, if you recall. Several years ago now, I'm sure, but different family groups complaining that Looney Tunes is far too violent and yada yada yada. When it's just cartoon violence, and this is the same. Commedia dell'arte is cartoon violence. In fact, that is literally where the cartoons get the violence from. And
slapstick comedy, the phrase slapstick, that comes from a literal tool that is used in commedia.
It is, yes. Traditionally, a slapstick, which is, I wish I had ours with me, but I don't. It's two pieces of wood, one big piece of wood with a handle about yay long, and a smaller slat of wood with a hinge and a spring and a strap on it, and you flick it with your wrist, and it makes a big old slap. And it's used to great comic effect, and commedia dell'arte has been for centuries. And there's a couple of the different stock characters that will traditionally wear it on their belt like a sword, because it's their weapon.
The fool's sword.
Exactly. So in our production, we do have one. And we will be arming both Brigella and Truffaldino with the slapstick at some point, building it into our story. So I feel like I've gotten off the beaten track here.
No, that's great. I actually want to ask about when you say stock characters.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Yes.
And like, do we see them in other forms of media today?
Great question. So, stock characters means that commedia dell'arte rests on these very, very stylized stock characters. And these stock characters are a list of, for instance, Pantalone, who is by name in The Servant of Two Masters. Pantalone is one of the stock characters in commedia dell'arte, and he's the miserly old man who's very, very greedy. He's a fatherly figure. He's a vecchi, or an old man, so he has authority, but he's also very, very lecherous, but has no ability to do so anymore. Do anything like that anymore, if you take my meaning. But he walks a very certain way. He traditionally, because commedia, these stock characters in some commedia troupes are an inherited role, or one that you apprentice into and spend your entire career learning how to do. Wow. In fact, when we had Tracy Sunderland from Boise State come in and do a couple-day workshop with us, and she had mentioned that working with a fifth generation Brighella in Italy.
That was part of her training.
That was part of her training in commedia, yeah. And she herself is a capitano. She was assigned capitano. That is one of the other. What is capitano? So capitano is another stock character. Actually, we do not have a capitano in Servant.
Okay.
Because Carlo Goldoni was writing at near the end of, he was writing to first of all, commedia plays were never really written down. Carlo Goldoni breaks the mold in a way in that he's actually scripting in words on paper what all the lines and the actions of the play. Commedia dell'arte typically is improvised through lazzi around a particular scenario. So the scenario of the lovers of the children of Dottore and Pantalone getting together and then being interrupted somehow and comic misconduct happening is one of the oldest stories in commedia.
And the lovers, that's
another stock character.
Set of stock
so yeah,
characters.
We're jumping around a bit, but yes. So the lovers are stock characters. They're always the children of Pantalone and Dottore. Dottore, the doctor, is another one of the vecchi old men. He's the counterpart to Pantalone. Okay. He's the old blowhard gas bag know-it-all that actually doesn't know a thing. So that's his continual battle. That's what makes him funny, is that he will expound on things forever without ever actually saying a word. And there's some really fun. Goldoni has written in some very fun exchanges between Dottore and Pantalone that show this off. Pantalone always exacerbates or annoys Pantalone, or Dottore annoys Pantalone, and Pantalone is always after Dottore's money. Back and forth. They're both constant enemies and each other's only friend, depending on how the story ebbs and flows. But that's typically who they are. Their children are always usually the lovers. They have various names. In Servant of Two Masters, it's Clarice and Silvio. A lot of times it's Isabella and Flavio. So
even their names are stock to a certain extent.
To a certain degree.
Okay, cool.
So Pantalone is always Pantalone. Debba, he sometimes has a last name. And Dottore is always Dottore. Okay. And in ours, he's Dottore Lombardi, Dr. Lombardi.
So it's like if you watch Looney Tunes and you see Bugs Bunny conducting the orchestra, or you see Bugs Bunny doing duck season, rabbit season. That's
actually a really good point. So when we get down to the Servant of Two Masters, our Truffaldino is his character name, but the type of character he is Arlecchino, which is what we know as the Harlequin. So if you're familiar with that phrase, or Harley Quinn if you're a comic book person, that name, that phrase is this character, this servant character, who is constantly hungry, very, very smart, very, very wily, but also dumb, not educated. So street smart, not book smart. Whereas Dottore would be book smart, and not even then. But very streetwise, constantly getting into trouble, and then through wacky ways, and then invariably getting out of those wacky things is always in. So that's Arlecchino, our Truffaldino, and he's always in love with Columbina, who is kind of his counterpart. Columbina in our story is Smeraldina. She's usually the maid to either Dottore or Pantalone. In our story, she's the maid to Pantalone, and the waiting woman, or kind of the maid in waiting for Clarice. So that's usually how that relationship exists. And she typically is the smartest person in the whole play. She, without much argument, but doesn't have the authority to do anything about it. So she has to rely on her feminine wiles to maneuver and manipulate the things the way she wants, which Goldoni writes in beautifully, and has a couple of passages that sound very contemporary, even though it's written in 1753, translated into English in 1928. But yes, our Columbina is is the smartest character in the play and usually gets what she wants. And she loves Arlecchino, Truffaldino. So our Smeraldina and our Truffaldino, that is kind of the ultimate, how the plot winds up is how are they going to get together. Yes. Done an awful lot of jumping around. I think I covered all the stock characters.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've also heard you compare this show, maybe it's this show, maybe it's these characters, I'm not sure, to Frasier.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that, just to give a little bit of that cultural context,
right,
for like what our audience might be familiar with?
Frasier, the 1990s sitcom Frasier, early 2000s, starring Kelsey Grammer. Frasier is the perfect Il Dottore. He and himself is the bumbling buffoon, the constantly doctor running his mouth, huge ego. So if you want like stock characters in today's world, Frasier Crane is an Il Dottore to a T. And while Frasier itself is not necessarily slapstick comedy, although it does have occasional clowning elements in that way, the dialogue is so quippy and so fast, and part of the other features of commedia is the Lazzi or the Lazzo, which we can talk about, I suppose, if you want to switch gears into that. But what Lazzi are just gags or jokes, extended theatrical jokes, staged jokes that can either be physical, verbal, in any shape and form, that aren't necessarily tied to any particular story. So they can be inserted anywhere. Brilliant.
And then, so one, I would love to hear the definition of Lazzo again. And then can we talk about Tracy Sunderland coming in to teach, because that was specifically like her workshops for the actors were to teach them how to kind of move through a Lazzo as their characters and taking on that improvisational element.
Yes.
So
a Lazzo is Italian for joke. In
plural Lazzi.
Plural Lazzi. Yes. Lazzi plural, Lazzo singular. And all that, it means joke. And in commedia, that means it's a staged gag or joke that can be done irrespective of any story that it's put into. So commedia is made up of, I forget the Italian term, canovacci, which are like scenarios. So the scenario being the actual plot, the Dottore and Pantalone are suing each other for defamation. Their kids are banned from seeing each other but keep sneaking out to see each other. Their servants are posted on guard but keep falling asleep. Then you build the story, and each scene then becomes, okay, how do we tell that story from beginning to end, knowing exactly how it ends up, and what fun hijinks do we find along the way? So when Tracy Sunderland came in, what she did was had the actors create those scenario and feel through them as their characters to tell them in real time. And so she would give them the structure with these rules and go work on it. Then we'll present, you'll show each other, we'll give a little bit of feedback, you'll tweak it, and we'll do it again. And that's quite literally how commedia is built, which is rehearsal.
And I got to sit in on that particular rehearsal, and it was so much fun just to watch. One, the scenarios were very basic. It was like a strongman contest for one, and there's 2 groups. So a strongman contest, and then another one where they had to deliver something to someone, but then they got hungry.
Yes.
And I don't exactly know what the sheets of paper said that they were, like, I don't know what the prompt was, but I know what I saw on the floor, and it was so cool to see, like, these small groups of actors make something of the scene and, like, put their own flavor on it. That was the best part, was them putting their flavor on it. And then when Tracy gave them the feedback and they got to do it again, and you could see how instantaneous the feedback, like,
gets folded in.
Yeah, and that it was even more funny in just a matter of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I love that, and I want to talk about how this production in particular, with that improvisational element and just how funny it's going to be, like, what can we expect to see when we're at Trailhead during a show? Like, is every show going to be the same?
Well, no, but that's also live theater. So live theater is never the same twice, and that's partly why I love live theater, because I can rely on, every audience is different, every night is different. But to your point of will we follow the words the same way? And no, we won't. At the very beginning, so at our very first read through with the cast, I said to them, we're gonna do this a little bit differently than anything we've ever done before, because we've mostly done Shakespeare with one exception. But even that, with these, I always honor the words, because that's what we have. That's all we have with Shakespeare, especially. But with commedia, with it having a much different background and a well-documented history of improvisation, and how we don't have to adhere to the same censorship laws that Goldoni was writing for. That's another one of the things as I've looked at, like, why Goldoni wrote versus let things be improvised. And part of it was to appease the Catholic Church, and I'm not doing that. We're not doing that. But I wanted to, so I said to the actors, I'm going to give you full freedom of improv of your lines. The story has to be the story. The character has to be the character. But I'm going to rely on the stock characters to guide us. I'm going to rely on what we know of the commedia, the rich commedia cultural fabric we get to pull from, the bedrock. Let that be our bedrock rather than the lines themselves. And part of that improvisational, satirical, clowning, foolish tone lets us be slightly antagonistic toward our own text. So things that are not necessarily as Goldoni, writing in 1753 for the Catholic Church, kind of, or for their sensibilities, is not the most forward, progressive text in 21st century United States. So it allows us to, while still telling this story, allows us to have a voice that we wouldn't normally have.
Like a modern voice.
Yeah, in a couple ways. Exactly. Both commentary, extra words that we might add as ourselves to the story, but also changing the words that the characters themselves say and how they say them. And with characters, or actors I should say, have been riffing all over the place. And it's really fun because 9 times out of 10 the riff adds something new and fun and spicy. It catches our ears in a fun way.
An example of that, another rehearsal I got to sit in on, Sam Murphy's character receives some information. Dottore receives some information from another character, and then Sam's response was facts, and then went into their line.
Yeah.
And so even just that one word, you can tell that it's more modern.
Yes.
When you hear it, and in that it makes it funny, because
it's an anachronism, but it also isn't, because it's us, and we give ourselves permission to do that, so we get to have our cake and eat it too, and we're the funnier for it.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, what I've seen so far has been super funny, and it isn't even like polished yet.
No, and we've still got miles to go, it feels like, but I can see the light at the end of that tunnel, and oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
So why should people come to this show?
for a lot of reasons. But most and primarily, my goal with this particular play is a lot of us, and I hear this through friends and social media and all sorts of things, that the world is a little scary right now. And things we don't understand, or feeling that people are harmful or questioning our faith in humanity even. And I'm drawn to the classics because they bring me comfort. And in that I mean, in the classics, I get to look at and see the struggles told on stage that are reflective of struggles from back in history that dwarf what we're going through now, or in some ways are very similar to what we may be going through, we're looking at right now. With Servant and Commedia dell'arte, it is the grandfather, the grandparent of all of our contemporary comedy. Mm-hmm. One of the comedic grandparents, and I think it is a delightfully fun, rigorous art form that is as delightful as it is absurd, as it is lighthearted, also as it is impactful. As I mentioned, so it can have a satirical twang to it. And I've said this in a couple of written releases that we've made, but comedy has the ability to diffuse situations before they even start.
Let our defenses down.
Yes, exactly. Comedy gets around our defenses. That's why rulers the world over for ages and ages have had court jesters or fools, or that's why clowns like Stephen Colbert do so well. They can tell us the things that we need to hear that are hard to palate. Mm-hmm. Now, while we're not dishing out some super hard truths in Servant of Two Masters, there's also a deep value, I think, in returning to a completely neutral, safe, hilarious. Yeah, the stakes are high in the story for the characters, and things are wacky and over the top and energized, but there's nothing heavy about the story. Mm. There's no doubt, and it should not be a doubt in anybody's mind, that it's going to wind up in a ridiculously over the top happy ending. And even if it doesn't, you're going to be okay with it because it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
You should I hope people come to this and feel like it's watching 2 hours of Looney Tunes with a through line. And watching people make those Looney Tunes for you and having those Looney Tunes literally interact with you. Mm-hmm. Because that's also part of it, and that's what I love about BVP and the classics too, is that they're all written with an idea of that the audience is an active member. Mm-hmm. So we will be talking to you like we do in every show. It's no different. Can't escape us. So this, I hope that people come out of Servant feeling like they just went to a 2-hour party, and they feel maybe just a little more resilient about the way things are going. Maybe things look just a little less bleak.
Yeah.
And at most, you had a really great time, and something that you get to talk about for the rest of your life. And then maybe we'll do something like it again, and then you come back and we just do it again.
I love it. This production is going to be at Trailhead in downtown Boise, which is a co-working space that I happen to work for. So yes. I'm the servant of two masters in a way here. An odd venue for a theater.
Yeah.
So to put Trailhead in perspective, it's a co-working space. There's a bunch of desks. They're hot desks. It's kind of like if you needed to go to the library, but you had a membership for it. And it's also an event space where we typically host things of an entrepreneurial nature. So this is going to be completely unique to the venue, as BVP always is usually.
Typically, yeah.
How are you going to use the space in a way that's unique and like aids the art of theater?
Right. So Trailhead has got this big open. So at the one end, there's a small stage that's 2 feet high. That's much too small to use for what I needed to use it for. So it's going to be our backdrop, and then in the middle of the space, we're going to clear away all the desks, and we're going to have what's called a thrust stage. So we'll have actors will be on the floor, and audience will be on three sides of it, using pillars that line all the way down Trailhead. The pillars will be the corners of our playing space. But then what's really cool, what Trailhead lent, and was the aha moment for me when looking at it, I got so excited. Trailhead has a bunch of these raisable standing desks that are all powered. And so you can, go from a seated position all the way up to, you can stand at them comfortably. So what we're going to do is we're going to use 6 of those rising desks to create cocktail tables, which then we're going to bring in some cocktails bar seating for those tables, and we will be, we'll have Mad Swede on site for slinging us some drinks. We should have a food truck as well for a number of nights. Mum's on the word on the name just yet because I don't have them locked down, but yeah. So the venue itself has a bar, has a parking lot that a food truck can park in. So all of these things are helping create. Trailhead itself is helping create this experience.
I love it, and I've gotten to see how you're using some of the stuff in Trailhead for the production itself.
Yes.
Specifically, Trailhead has a couple of conference rooms that are built by these T-shaped whiteboard walls on
whiteboard.
wheels.
Yeah.
And so Chris figured out that we could use them as part of the set dressing.
They're
and
perfect
they
scenery.
move, and you have what, 4 different
scenes I have to make using them.
And we posted a brief little video on our Instagram and Facebook. So if you haven't seen that yet, you can kind of see what we're talking about if you check that out. But it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very different than our palette walls that people are used to.
Yeah. Yes.
A changing set.
We have pipe and drape for the very first time ever. They're literally sitting here. They got shipped today, so
great.
I'm so excited. We're moving on up. It feels like.
It does feel like that. Every show we're moving on up.
Yeah. Yep.
Are there any closing thoughts that you have? Is there anything we haven't covered that you want people to know?
I don't think so. Other than it's a living cartoon. It's going to be so much fun. And it is exactly, I guess the only thought is I can't believe BBP's waited so long to do commedia, but also it feels like, no, we had to wait this long. You
had to establish your Shakespeare
We
chops.
had to really get everything underneath us, and yeah, now we're in a place where this feels like, oh, of course, and but now it feels like, why haven't we done commedia sooner? It's so much fun.
Yeah.
It's just how many jokes can we ram into a story? Anyway, if you want stupid, lighthearted fun, that's gonna be bazoinkers.
Well, so The Servant of Two Masters runs April 24th through May 4th. Tickets are range from $20 to $50 if you want either reserved seating or those
General
cocktail
admission.
tables that Chris mentioned. That's a box seat. So you can get your tickets at boisebardplayers.org/servant, and we hope to see you at the show. And none of this would be possible without the help of our sponsors, so I just want to give a quick shout out to She's Smokin' Barbecue, Truffles Etc., The Agency, Real Estate Agency, and Vintage 61 Wine Bar, as well as our individual donors, Josh Johnston, Lex Gonzalez, and Daniel Vogt. So thank you to everyone that has made this possible. We're very, very grateful, and we couldn't do it without your support. So we'll see you all at The Servant of Two Masters.